See, I would like to start this video by showing you a particular clip that will make you hungry.
Mr. Vice President,
the CIA has concluded that the leader of Saudi Arabia directed the murder of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The State Department also says the Saudi government is responsible for executing nonviolent offenders and for torture. President Trump has not punished senior Saudi leaders. Would you?
Yes, and I said it at the time. Khashoggi was in fact murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to in fact sell more weapons to them. We were not going to in fact sell more weapons to them. We were going to in fact make them pay the price and make them in fact the pariah that they are. Make them in fact the pariah that they are.
Of course, that was Joe Biden, now American president, when he was contesting to be the US president. And later in this video, I'm going to explain to you the reason why the statement you've just heard now should make you hungry, especially if you are a black man or you are an Indian. Now, before I continue with this video, I would like to show you another short clip. Please pay attention to everything this man is about to say.
The relationship we have with India stands on its own. The relationship we have with Pakistan stands on its own.
Please don't forget what these two guys have just said, because we will need it later in the video. Now, for you to understand how crazy what these two men said is, I would like to tell you an interesting story. You see, on Wednesday, May 19th, 1954, Pakistan signed a mutual defense agreement with the United States. What that means was just that, United States and Pakistan, we are friends, we are allies. And from there, Pakistan and US started becoming friends. However, 10 years later, in 1964, something worse will actually happen, and that is Pakistan decided to sign a similar agreement, this time around not only with the US but with the most powerful countries from the West, that is the British, the France, New Zealand, Australia, Philippines, which essentially means, now Pakistan is friends with virtually all of the most powerful powers from the West. Then you might ask me, so what is the problem? A nation want to be allies with, other countries of the world. Of course, there is no problem about that, except that Pakistan and India have been enemies. In fact, they have been going to war since 1947. Take a moment to think about that from the shoes of India. Imagine you are India, and now your enemy is becoming friends with the United States, with the British, with France, like all the power from the West. What are you going to do? To make it worse, during this same period, Pakistan was becoming friends with China, which means you are India, and now your enemy is becoming friends with your enemy. All of them are probably becoming friends with the most powerful people in the world. What are you going to do? Now, there is something very important you need to remember here. During this era, there were two most powerful countries in the world, and that is America and Soviet Union. So, what India did is just what any reasonable nation would have done. India attached itself with Soviet Union. This background story is very, very important for our discussion later in the video, so please do not forget it. In August of 1971, India and Soviet Union signed a treaty of peace and cooperation, which essentially means we are friends, we are allies. And this treaty was to last 20 years. This treaty was to last 20 years. So August 8, 1991, India and Soviet Union essentially renewed their treaty. But there's a problem, and the problem is Soviet Union died in December of 1991.
Good evening from Washington and Merry Christmas. And while much of the world was distracted today by the business of celebrating Christmas, Mikhail Gorbachev signed himself and the Soviet Union out of business without ruffles or flourishes. The Russian flag has replaced the hammer and sickle over the Kremlin.
Now, as Soviet Union crumbled, India was left without friends. Again, what are you supposed to do? India simply attach itself with Russia, because again, you cannot have your enemies being friends with British and United States and said, oh, I don't want to be friend with a bad person. And this, my friend, was the beginning of India-Russia relationship. And like every two people or two nations who are friends, India and Russia simply do business together and help each other. For example, between 1992 and 2020, the amount of ammunition imported by India from Russia looked like this, which represents something like 85 to 90% of entire India importation of arms. And similar thing happened with oil and every other thing you can imagine, which essentially again is what two friends do with each other. Now, if you have been asking, where is this story getting us to? Now we are there. February 24th, 2022, as you know by now, these guys show up in the border of Ukraine and started shooting.
Here we go.
It started before dawn. Ukraine woke to explosions around the capital, Kiev. It was the same across the country. These pictures from Kharkiv in the east. Enormous blasts, also in the city of Dnipro.
Yeah, Russia invaded Ukraine, which is a bad thing, And America started talking, and every other nation, allies of America, started pulling out sanctions against Russia. At this point, everybody in the world knew that what Russia did simply was evil. But India would not criticize Russia, and so many countries in Africa. The United States was like, oh really? Why won't you criticize an evil man? Talking to India now. Why won't you criticize an evil man? Then US started putting pressure on African countries, demanding that they criticize Russia. And when many African countries think, oh, our skin is not in this battle, and after a lot of threats, then somebody suggested, what if we create some laws to specifically punish African countries who do not condemn Russia? Now, just as this happened to Africa, exact same thing happened to India. Not just that America wanted India and other African countries to condemn Russia, America actually wanted them to stop doing business with Russia.
What Dilip did make clear to his counterparts during this visit was that we don't believe it's in India's interest to accelerate or increase imports of Russian energy and other commodities.
At this point, I would like to show you one of the videos I promise will make you hungry.
Mr. Vice President, the CIA has concluded that the leader of Saudi Arabia directed the murder of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The State Department also says the Saudi government is responsible for executing nonviolent offenders and for torture. President Trump has not punished senior Saudi leaders. Would you?
Yes, and I said it at the time. Khashoggi was, in fact, murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to, in fact, sell more weapons to them. We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are.
As you can hear Biden in this video, he was saying essentially that because of the human rights abuse, when he becomes president, he was going to punish Saudi Arabia, and specifically he said his government was going to stop selling arms to Saudi, right? Guess what? I googled to know how much ammunition US had actually sold to Saudi since Biden became president, and this is what I found. In November of 2021, Biden government sold ammunition worth $650 million to Saudi, while in August of 2002, the same government sold ammunition worth $3 billion to Saudi. Which leads us to a very important question, and that is, why? Biden is supposed to be US president. I mean, he criticized Trump for not being a man enough to have punished Saudi. Why can't he do it? To get the answer for that question, we have to travel back to January of 1951. On January 17, 1951, United States and Saudi Arabia signed a treaty of friendship, which is today termed oil for weapon. This treaty contains about at least the public knows, about 5 terms. The first one is that Saudi Arabia is going to continue pumping its oil into the world market. Now, you might ask, why is this important? Now, 2 reasons. Reason number 1, Saudi Arabia has 70% of the entire world oil reserve, and it is probably the strongest country among the OPEC nations. Now, reason number 2, the entire economy of the United States depends on oil. So if Saudi Arabia should wake up tomorrow and said, we want to stop or cut into half the quantity of oil we produce, and we will influence everybody else in OPEC to do it, then there will be crisis for America, probably the whole world. Now, the second term in this treaty is that Saudi would be selling its oil in dollars. Of course, you probably know why that is important to America, so I don't want to go into that. Third, which is equally important, is that Saudi Arabia is going to be supporting any of the America, whether good or bad, foreign policy. In return, America is going to provide military assistance for Saudi Arabia. That was the treaty, that was the agreement. And that is the reason why Joe Biden could not, as a president, stop selling ammunition to a country he himself confessed to have killed a journalist. I mean, a country that has been alleged of human rights abuse, state-sponsored terrorism, and any other ugly thing you can think about. Now we have to go back to India and African countries. So think about it for a moment. If United States of America think it can continue doing business or helping, supplying arms to a country that is evil, according to Biden, why would America think that India has done something bad by being friends with another evil country? Before I answer that question, I need to show you the second clip, which we, I swear, get you hungry.
The relationship we have with India stands on its own. The relationship we have with Pakistan stands on its own.
By the way, that is the U.S. State Department spokesman, Prince, or what is his name? Is it Prince or Price? While trying to defend the reason why United States sold F-16 fighter jet to Pakistan, knowing that Pakistan is having conflicts with India. Of course, you heard what this guy said. He said, okay, there is no problem about that. We have relationship with India, and we keep that. We have relationship with Pakistan, and we want to keep that too. Now, the question to the United States is, why is the US free to keep relationship with two enemies, and any other country in the world does not have right to keep relationship with two enemies? You see, if you are one of those people who have been watching my video for a period of time, you will discover that I am not one of those people who like to point fingers and blame everybody else for their calamities. If there is a single reason why I like to tell you these stories, it's not to get you to hate America, Europeans, whites, or any other person you think oppresses you. My objective are two. One, I want to get black people and other people from poor nations to understand how the world is run, to understand the game of power. Second, I want us to use this understanding to seek power for ourselves. You see, when it comes to the world we live in, there is no such thing as justice, fairness, equity, rule of law, and any other thing you might think should exist. The only one thing that rules the world is power. Power and power. And the two ways people get power is by wealth and weapon. So what tends to happen is, if you have power, you can do no wrong. United States can do no wrong. Now, if you lack power, you are wrong by default. I don't want you to see this from the perspective of nations alone. I want you to see it from your own perspective, like human to human. In everyday human to human relationship and conflict, the guy that has power is the guy that always wins. So let me tell you a personal story which you can relate with. You see, when I was broke, when I couldn't feed myself, when I couldn't afford to buy clothes, the cheapest clothes I will wear, I have a few people around me who love to talk to me like gods. You know what I'm talking about if you have been poor before. And I told myself, okay, it is not their fault. It's because I'm broke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sacrifice anything under the sun as long as it's legitimate and godly, to be sure I have some money. So luckily for me, in 2016, I figured out how to build my first successful company. And I started making more money than all these guys who used to talk to me like God. You guess what happened immediately? Suddenly these guys keep their mouth shut. It doesn't matter whether we go to occasion and we meet or they talk to me on phone. They just never disrespect me ever again. Because now they know that I have more power than them. First, they know I will never call them. From 2016, I have never called any human on earth to send me money. So they know I will never call them that I need their help. If you can achieve that with your life, everybody else start to respect you. Then secondly, this guy know that they will probably need me. When you have more money than people, they know they will need you. And they do. Please, I have little problem with my business. Can you send me, please, can you borrow me 200,000 naira? I will give you back 3 months. They know they will need that. And of course, they do need that. So they stop disrespecting you. They stop looking at you as a dog. In fact, in many cases, they start looking at you as a god. Even though they once treated you like a god, like as though they were God, now they treat you as if you are God. This happens every day between humans. Whoever has power is the God. Whoever lack power, I'm sorry, you are at fault. So it's the same with nations. And my challenge is that many poor people don't have enough inspiration to understand this. They don't understand that you have to seek some power before you have any relevancy in this world. And if there are sacrifices, which is where I'm going, if there are sacrifices you have to make, be it that you spend less than you earn, be it that you read some books about money, be it that you put yourself to take risk, if there are some sacrifices you have to make to have some power, you have to start doing it tomorrow morning. Because I have tasted the two sides of the coin, and I can tell you authoritatively, life is better with power. With power, I dictate what I do. With some money, I dictate when I wake up, when I sleep. I dictate who I call. I dictate whose phone I answered. Just 2 days ago, somebody added me to a WhatsApp group, and I got to the group and I saw the nonsense they are doing there. I put myself out, and somebody, one of my friends, sent me a message, said, "Oh, I saw you left that group." I said, "I left it because I'm not comfortable." Like, yeah. I do what you just do what you want to do. The same thing with nations. Now, my fear and pain is that just as many poor people don't get inspiration from the fact that our world is ruled by power, many poor nations don't get that same inspiration. And, I'm sorry, America will never be a fair country. America will never pursue justice. America will never pursue rule of law. America will always turn the blind eyes to Saudi Arabia, regardless of how many evil they do. But they will come after any African nation who do similar things. That is power. The only thing we can do is to go seek some power. Whether you are individual or you are a political leader, the primary objective of life is power. I hope this video makes sense to somebody. If you like my video, you probably will like my books. I think there is 1 or 2 of them you can download for free. And I have a program, African Business University, which is essentially a program to teach people about entrepreneurship. Now, you can check the description to get the links to all those. Thank you so much for watching.